Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. It's Tuesday night. It's 9 p.m. I am behind the steel curtain editor Dave Schofield coming at you, as always, with my big brother Rich. Big Bro Scho, how you doing tonight?
Welcome to the Bro Show.
All right.
Doing well.
What do you need to do?
Breathe in that sweet smell of victory.
Yeah, and it's
that the guys who are probably not going to be around in a couple weeks almost, gave away.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I struggled because like a lot of people, I called it. I called it on Twitter. I tweeted it. I hated to be right. I don't like being right about some things, but I put something out on Twitter and just say, people need to understand right now that there's a decent chance that even though the TV guide or whatever it was said that this game was going to be able to 10:30, when the 10 o'clock game gets ready to kick off, they're going to switch it from the Steelers game. Said you've got to be ready to know that they could be changing it from the Steelers game. And, someone said, well, I don't think they will. I'm like, I hope you're right. And they did. And not only that, then they didn't go to the game right away. It was a lot of analysis, and that was dumb. Then they didn't even stay on that game. They went and showed basically like it was a live look into a game that started at 7. I'm like, why wouldn't you keep showing the game you were showing? But I went to the radio. I was listening.
I wouldn't know because I was watching on KDKA TV, and we just watched the game.
You just watched the game. And that would have been great. But I had a feeling that was going to happen. So I missed the very, very end of it. I'm still making arrangements for Friday night to make sure that I'm going to be able to see this game. For those of you that haven't done this yet.
And I'll be watching on KDK TV.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't yet, you can get a free 7-day trial of NFL Game Pass, which allows you to see all the preseason games live, unless you're in the market and it's blacked out. But if you're in the market, you should just watch it on KDKA. So that was interesting. Before we dive into last week, and then look forward to this week, what we're going to talk about, I know the title was saying about the biggest concerns. We're going to talk about things that we saw. We got to see the starters. If you had been practicing and you weren't injured, and you remember the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you were projected to be someone who's going to contribute this year, you saw the field. The only guys that didn't see the field were not all the bottom end guys got out there because all the other guys were taking up snaps. So we get to break down some things. We're going to look at the things that we might not have to worry about and some of the things we are going to have to worry about. But before we do, let's get to some of the news of the day or news of the last couple days. I know the Steelers, they cut down their 5 players. We'll get to that real quick. Before we do, over the weekend, I think it was over the weekend. I don't think it was yesterday. It might have been yesterday. I don't know. It's all running together. Sunday or Monday, there was a quote-unquote report from Jerry Dulac that TJ Watt is going to sign his deal after the last preseason game, and he'll be the highest paid defensive player in the NFL.
Now, rephrase that.
Now I'll say that. I said report.
It was not a report.
Yeah. It wasn't I said report. Sorry, you're right. I need to do this for the people listening audio. I did the air quotes because guess what? It wasn't a report. It wasn't an inside story. It was a comment. And how do you know it wasn't an inside story from Jerry Dulac, who we can trust what he's saying a lot of the times on like almost more than anybody else who's a Steelers insider, in my opinion. The reason it wasn't a report is because he did not say the words per source.
Yep.
When he says per source, that means he has gotten information from inside the Steelers that this is what's going to happen. When he didn't do that, he just gave us his opinion of what it's going to happen. He doesn't know for sure that he's going to be the highest paid defensive player. He doesn't know for sure that it's going to be after the Carolina game. This was what he thought. Now, do you think he's right?
I think he's right. I think Gary Dulac has it down, but he didn't get it as any type of inside information.
It wasn't a breaking news thing. It was he was offering what he thought is going to happen. And he specifically said it that way. But all of a sudden, my goodness, everybody's running with these stories about TJ Watt and that this is how it's going to be. No, there's a good chance because Jerry Dulac's very in tune with the team. But this is not one of those things when you come back and all of a sudden he's not the highest paid defensive player, or he signs Thursday before the game. They're like, oh, Jerry got it. No, Jerry didn't get it wrong. Jerry was just saying what he thought was going to happen.
No. Jerry would get it wrong, but it wasn't that he was reporting wrong.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
That his opinion was wrong. And that's okay. That's what opinions are out there for. Sometimes your opinion turns out to be right. Sometimes your opinion can turn out to be wrong. Okay?
Yeah, you were exactly
right. So it's not bad reporting from Gary Dulac if it doesn't work out that way.
Now, I will also give you this. There was tons of reports out there, and we thought, verified, everything else coming from national media guys about stuff with Joe Schobert and dealing with his salary, that the Jaguars were paying for part of it, that it was restructured. Jared Dulac didn't report on this until like 3 days later. And some people were like, come on, Jared Bear, get with it. No, it's just he's not going to report it until he can get it verified from inside the Steelers. That's just how he is, and that's what you have to understand going forward. So that's a story that's not a story. I still think that
it's an item to watch.
Exactly.
It's not a story.
Exactly. He's given us an idea of what we could look for, but this was not any kind of big report. So just to clarify that. Now let's get to today. The Steelers had to trim their roster down to 80 players. They were at 85, so they had to, quote unquote, release 5 players. Actually, they only cut 4 players because one player was waived/injured, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So the 4 players that the Steelers cut, and because this will take so much. And I will tell you this, Jeff and I, we do our little article predicting them. We had 4 of the same people. Jeff was talking about how embarrassed he was that he got them all wrong the first time. I only got one right again this time, and it was the one that we didn't have the same because Jeff got them all wrong again. So that was pretty interesting. But who they released, the wide receiver Tyler Simmons, that was the one I guessed. Offensive lineman Aviante Collins. I actually picked him last time and then didn't pick him this time. Linebacker Calvin Bundage, who had been cut and then brought back, and now he was cut again. And then running back, I figured there'd be a running back, but I picked the wrong one. It was Pete Guerrero. I was kind of hoping this guy could make the practice squad, so that's why I didn't cut him. I cut a different running back when I was predicting him. So, but that's who it was. It was Guerrero, Bundage, Collins, and Simmons. Those aren't very big surprises. The big surprise, everything to talk about, was the waived injured of safety Antoine Brooks Jr. Did you see that one coming, Rich?
No.
Me neither.
I didn't see it coming, but as soon as it happened, I knew what the idea was.
Uh-huh.
Because of what the designation is. It's waived/injured. So let me make sure I get this right. Technically, he goes to waivers for 24 hours. If nobody claims him, he comes back to our injured list.
Okay, yes. If nobody claims him, he comes back to the Steelers' injured list. Now the reason it's waived injured is because he's not a vested veteran. Okay. So right. I'm not sure if that changed with the new CBA or not. It used to be that when a vested veteran was released, they could, or was injured, they could go straight to IR and not have to be, and not go through waivers. I think that's still how it is. For example, right now, if one of the Steelers, other players, could do that. But at the same time, this is meant to keep teams from just stashing young players on IR. Because here's what happens. He has to go through waivers 24 hours knowing that he's injured. Another team can claim him, and then he's theirs. So he comes back, he reverts to the Steelers IR, but they have 5 days to do an injury settlement. Now, what an injury settlement is the Steelers say, we're putting you on IR because we think you're going to miss X number of weeks. Then the player and his agent says, we think he's going to miss this number of weeks. And they try to figure out where, come to an agreement on how long he's going to be out, on how long it would take for him to come back. And then that's how long this team needs to pay him for. All right. But the thing is, once you do that settlement, that means the player is instantly gone then. And you can't sign that player back until, it used to be 6, but I'm pretty sure now it's 3 weeks after the end of that injury settlement. So if they did an injury settlement that says, hey, you're going to be out 3 weeks, they couldn't sign him back for 6 weeks, if you know what I mean. So now here's the thing. If he just goes to IR, then he's on IR for the season. Now, just like Travis Etienne was put on IR by the Jaguars today, he's not eligible to return. Because remember, to be eligible to return from IR, you have to be on the 53-man roster. I was air quotes for those of you listening in podcast form. You have to be on the 53-man roster for at least 1 day. So nobody who goes on IR now is eligible to return. You're not. The only thing that could happen is that the player could be released and then signed back later. That actually happened a few years ago, if I remember, with Xavier Grimble. I think it was that the Steelers put him on IR in camp, and then he ended up getting released, and then he was able to either sign somewhere else. I can't remember if it was somewhere else or that year he came back. I can't remember. It was Xavier Grimble. I'm trying to block him out of my brain so we don't think of that play in Denver.
All I see is that play in Denver.
Yeah, let's just say that play in Denver. We won't even go there anymore. So what happens is, you're like, well, what happens if you put it? And now they're saying, well, what's the difference between the injury settlement and just going on IR? Well, if a player doesn't feel that they're injured to be out for the season, they obviously want to try to come back, because you don't make full salary on IR. You do make, it's a portion of this. It's a split salary. And it does count towards the salary cap. You got to remember these things. But if they think they can come back in 6 weeks, they want to be able to come back somewhere. So that's the whole benefit of doing an injury settlement. If it's an injury, like who was the player that I can't remember, the one player for the Steelers, that young guy, Marcus Acey.
Yeah.
That like tore his ACL. He went to IR. There wasn't an injury settlement there because he was going to miss the whole season. It'd make no sense to do an injury settlement. And if the two teams can't come together on an injury settlement, then they go on IR. But you're like, well, what if they're not injured that whole time? Okay. Once a player passes a physical that's on IR, the team has to release them. So if he ends up back on the Steelers IR,
release them. Do they have to release him, or can they just bring him to the roster?
I think you have to release him. I'm not even sure that they can bring him to the roster.
Okay.
If you put someone on IR,
right,
and then have to release them, I don't think you're allowed to bring them back. I'm fairly certain of that one, but I was looking into this today and I hadn't made it that far, if you know what I mean. So just trying to explain to people that want to know about stuff with Brooks. Oh, can we now put him on the practice squad and things like that? That's how it all has to play out. So he's got to clear waivers, and there's got to be an injury settlement, and then there's got to be so much time. Bottom line is, doesn't look good for him. Ended up with the Steelers in 2021. That's bottom line. Would you agree?
I would agree.
Yeah. So that's crazy.
And I know that's got some people flipping out. Mm-hmm. He's probably not in there in the live chat tonight, and I haven't even responded to his text yet. But Thaddeus Kennedy, texted me, was like, "Oh my gosh, what is this going to do to our depth at safety and blah blah?" And I'm just, my first thought is, the Steelers have a plan.
Yeah.
If they didn't have a plan, this move would not have been made.
Exactly. They would have tried to stick him around and get him onto IR after being on the roster for a day. Yep. But that's not the plan that they had. Like, honestly, I've said that could be the case with some other players. That could be, maybe that's what they want to do with a Benny Snell. I don't know. At this point, you haven't seen Benny Snell. I don't even know if he's worth even trying to keep around. That could be. Last week, Mike Tomlin hinted about something when they were asking about Stephon Tuitt coming back. We all assume it's coming back from dealing with everything with his family and whatnot. But the way Coach Tomlin answered the question, he says, we don't have to report on injuries this time of year, so I won't. So people were like, is Tuitt also dealing with an injury? He could be a guy.
That's Tomlin play. That's Tomlin playing.
I know, but you can't dismiss it. But correct. I like how he did it. That, you know what I'm saying? So we'll still see what happens there. But honestly, and that's when you get a player, whenever you try to make those moves, right, when you cut down the 53, you know what your best bet's to do? Don't cut a rookie. Don't cut a guy on his rookie contract. You cut a bottom end veteran, because they don't go on waivers. And you could say, hey, we're cutting you. I want to sign you only because we want to sign you back tomorrow. We just need to get so-and-so on the IR. That's what you do with somebody like a Cassius Marsh. You know what I'm saying? That wouldn't have to go through waivers. But Marsh would have to make the 53. You know what I mean? He'd have to be in their plans overall. So I spent a long time explaining that, but I also thought it was good to get the information out there.
Well, you're long-winded and
that takes a lot to explain. That takes a lot to explain. So that's the deal with the Steelers. So that's one of the positions we're going to be talking about here real soon. And that, we might even just start off with that to lead into it. We saw the Steelers. We basically saw all the starters. The only players that weren't playing was, you didn't see Antoine Brooks, and he was kind of a starter. And now we understand why. Still didn't see Benny Snell, but I don't know that I'd call him a starter, but he's still someone you want to see. It was mainly just missing Chase Claypool coming back from the tweaked ankle from earlier in the week, and Stephon Tuitt and TJ Watt. And bottom line is you were missing players that you have depth at those positions for the preseason right now. That's even Chase Claypool. You have the depth at the wide receiver right now that you could go into that and still be good. So I feel like we got a great look. Of course you're missing your defensive player of the year candidate. So it would only get better when he comes back. But I'll be honest with you, we'll start off with a positive one. I'm not worried about outside linebacker right now. How about you?
Ingram and Highsmith looked very well as a tandem out there.
Yeah.
That does not worry me really at all. So when you throw TJ Watt back out there, no worries at outside linebacker, something that people were worried about. Well, do we have depth? Who's going to be the rotational guy? This, that, everything else? Don't have to worry about it. We'll be fine.
Yeah. I'm like, my thing is, we're still talking about like the Jameer Jones, the Quincy Roche, the Cassius Marsh. Those guys, there's got to be something go down where someone's missing the game for them to really get on the field. Because why would you even go beyond those three of Watt, Highsmith, Ingram, in my opinion? I mean, right now, you saw that even Highsmith and Ingram will get the job done. Adding TJ Watt is just super bonus, if you know what I mean. They already had two guys that could hold it down.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
Not. I wouldn't call it super bonus. Adding TJ Watt is next level.
Yeah, like no, he's not the next level. He's the level above the next level. Mm-hmm. I mean, right? We gotta keep it how it is. So, yes. But what TJ Watt does is you don't have to worry about. If you didn't have him, you have Highsmith and Ingram who did a great job. You wouldn't have to worry about someone spelling them. You know what I'm saying? Who the next guy is, because you know how it works. Bottom line is, outside linebacker, I got no worries there right now. And just think of how concerned. That was one of the biggest areas of concern this offseason because of the depth after those two. It's all good, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
No worries.
Let's go ahead and roll into what we were talking about so much with Antoine Brooks Jr. Let's go to corner.
Yep.
How concerned are you? Now, this isn't just the two outside corners. We're also talking about the slot. So let's say we're going to keep it at 3 because even if the Steelers were to go dime, which they haven't really even done this preseason, to me, that's adding another safety. It could be someone who's not a safety, but kind of that's what you do. If we're talking about corner and you're talking about those three, how are you feeling right now? Are we A-okay, or is it an area of concern?
I don't want to say we're A-okay,
mm-hmm.
but we're good.
Okay.
Because we've seen Cam Sutton have to play on that inside slot corner role.
Mm-hmm.
And, the coaches know what they have from that. So, he is, I think it was Coach Tomlin that alluded to it as well when they were talking to him pre-draft and that kind of stuff, that he knows things so well. He could even be that kind of guy that could be your starting outside corner,
mm-hmm.
and in nickel slide to slot and bring James Pierre in to take outside. Which
is very interesting. That's, Coach Tomlin did talk about that in yesterday's press conference and Mondays, because that was in my 7 players mentioned article on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers, and where he did mention that, which is funny because isn't that what most of us were talking about a large portion of the offseason?
I was going to say, early after the season was over, and Mike Hilton, when Mike Hilton was gone, we talked about that.
Yeah, that's something that you could see happen.
But a lot of people say you don't normally do that. But when Coach Tom comes out and says, no, this is a guy that is really smart, really high, football IQ, and could play outside, drop inside, back outside, that when Coach Tom says a guy like Cam Sutton could do this, I would tend to believe that he could.
Yeah. Now,
so I don't want to say that it's an area of concern.
What about the depth?
An area to watch. Depth.
Are you concerned with the depth?
Potentially.
Because if you have to put Cam Sutton in that role, who's your next guy up for nickel corner? Is that when you're going to try to do Mollett, but now he's injured, and you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're
saying. There's the biggest thing that's been killing the Steelers with this is injuries throughout training camp. And now, training camp's over now, but preseason. So it's making it extremely difficult. Now, I did have an email sent to me. It was actually sent to me on Sunday, but I didn't even see it until today because my email's acting funny. It's not telling me I had messages. That was asking about corner. What do you see? I'm like, about a trade. I'm like, now, this was before Brooks was released, put waived/injured. We got to get it right. Waived/injured.
Right.
Okay. I was saying, I don't feel that the Steelers have to make a trade to grab a corner or have to go pick up somebody else, but they could.
They could, and I would not blink an eye at it.
Because they obviously they liked what they had, so much so to let somebody like Steven Nelson go. So they obviously liked what they had. So therefore they still have some stuff that they like, but I understand that they feel like it's getting a little bit thin. If they don't make the move, I'm okay with it. If they do make the move, I'm okay with it. If they get the right guy for the right price.
Right.
So there we go. So that was an area that's, could be a little bit of a concern, more from a depth perspective. We're going to stick to defense for now because that's where we started.
And again, for me, it's more an area to watch.
Yes, an area. That's right, an area to watch. See what they do. Not going to be shocked if they bring in somebody else. Okay, not going to be shocked. Wouldn't be surprised if they bring in someone else. I don't know that they have to, but I think they could. So let's go ahead. Let's stick to the secondary. Let's roll to safety. What do you think of safety?
I'm all right with safety.
Yeah. I mean, bottom line is, one thing we didn't even mention with corner was we didn't even mention Joe Hayden. Joe Hayden comes in and Jeffrey broke it down Jeffrey Benedict in an article today at BehindTheStuffCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. Anyway, go check out the article that Jeffrey wrote today. And it was about Joe Hayden, coming in and doing what Joe Hayden does. Okay, it was Joe Hayden's. Now that was Jeff's. Joe Hayden shows that once again he is the answer to the Steelers' problems. That was the name of the article by Jeffrey Benedict. And what he was saying was that these types of plays that the Steelers have been struggling with. The first time the Lions went to run that play, Joe Hayden almost got an interception.
Yeah,
because Joe Hayden knows how to play that play. And I know earlier a while back in the live chat, I just saw one name. I'm like, oh, I want to read what this says. Because someone said Stephon Diggs. The Steelers go up against Stephon Diggs the first week. Yes, they do. Probably one of, in my opinion, might be the best receiver in the NFL right now.
One of the most underrated, in my opinion. In my opinion.
So the thing was, they're like, well, look at last year. But you got to remember that game last year. No Joe Hayden. Joe Hayden didn't play against the Bills last year. Yep. So that's just something to keep in mind in the back of your head. So that was interesting. Joe Hayden was out cutting out those plays. Then we go to safety, which we were going to talk about. Minkah Fitzpatrick's in there. And what do you know? How the linebackers are playing in the passing game looks a little bit different. And all the linebackers all of a sudden look like they can do a little bit more. What do you know? Because they have Minkah Fitzpatrick back there doing what Minkah Fitzpatrick does. So,
you mean Minkah Fitzpatrick is read and react from safety to where, linebackers then on tight ends are saying, okay, we're going to get short. If somebody busts us off, try to go deep, Minkah's got our help over the top.
Exactly. Those kind of things. So you've got Minkah Fitzpatrick. Terrell Edmonds had a really good game. He was one of the higher ranked defenders of PFF scores for the Steelers on Saturday night, where he was doing fine. But you know what? I also think you have your two reserves. I think it's Trey Norwood at free and Miles Killebrew at strong. I think you've got that down. I also wouldn't be shocked if someone like Miles Killebrew ends up being the guy that might come in and dime, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So I'm good with safety. You go with safety?
I'm good with safety.
So that's not a big area of concern right now. Let's go. We got two more on the defense before we take a break. Let's go inside linebacker. How you feel there?
TBD.
Yeah, okay.
All right. To be determined.
Mm-hmm.
Like to see a little bit more of Schobert with Bush.
Yes.
Once I'm 100% on board with that, then that makes Spillane look like very good depth, as well as potentially Buddy Johnson.
Well, and here's what's crazy from the game Sunday night. They only played 4 inside linebackers. They played Devin Bush and Joe Schobert, and then they played Robert Spillane and Marcus Allen.
Yeah, I know. I noticed
they did not play UG3, and they did not play Buddy Johnson. So I'm sorry. Buddy Johnson's a 4th-round draft pick and hasn't done anything wrong. I don't think he's going to miss the cut of the 53, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
But it's funny. If they really like Marcus Allen, the way they're using him as a linebacker when he was really a safety and everything else, I don't know that if he doesn't make the 53, that he's not a guy that you couldn't just get to the practice squad, because I don't know if anyone wants to utilize him in the way the Steelers are using him. So it's going to be real. I'm not sure what they're doing there. That's why your TBD answer is pretty good.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what they're doing there. I really don't.
I'm not really concerned, but again, I'm not super concerned about that position. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Exactly. So the Steelers were looking to make moves, and I mean, I thought Devin Bush looked much more comfortable in his second game.
Yep.
Just because the first one was his first one back with the knee, so you kind of expect that. Last but not least, defensive line.
No worries. Move on.
No worries. We're good.
Yeah.
I
good.
mean,
No
even with Stephon Tuitt out, I mean, I would like to get Stephon Tuitt back, but you're showing some stuff there. The biggest concern they have to figure out is who's sticking around,
and who's not.
Yeah, and I mean, Carlos Davis had a nice game had a nice game on Saturday. He was the third highest PFF score for the Steelers defense for the game, only behind Highsmith and Ingram. It was then Carlos Davis. So I think he looked much better. But believe it or not, I bet Isaiah Buggs was fifth. He was up there too. So I think the biggest thing they have to worry about is figuring out who they're going to keep. But that's a good problem to have. So with that, we're going to call, the only big concerns we really have on defense, and it's not even a big concern, is how are they figuring it all out at corner still?
Like the corner. Yep.
Because, I mean, I thought Brooks did great in the Hall of Fame game, and then now he's gone. It's like they spent all this time to figure out something, and then they have to – it's like it didn't happen. It's a shame. It really is. So, all right, we're going to come back in part 2, and we're going to look at the offense, which there's plenty to talk about with the offense, and then we'll look forward ahead to this Friday's game, see what we think is going to go on there, what we'd like to see there, and of course, we'll do our question at the end. So if you're with us on the audio side, go ahead and go over to part 2. If you're here with us on YouTube or Facebook, give us a few seconds, and we'll be right back. Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to part 2 of the Scho Bro Show. This is Dave Schofield, editor behind the Steel Curtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. And with me, as always, here on Tuesday night is my big brother, Rich. How's it going, big bro?
I thought the way you paused there, I thought we were going to go, at behind the Steel Curtain.com.
No, I'm sorry. I'm a little bit off there. Maybe I just need to I just need to squirrel some nuts.
Yeah. Thank you.
Since you brought up that comment.
Yeah, thank you for that Steeler freak. I love that.
What another great Tomlinism. It only counts if you hear it again. It only counts if you hear it
I
once.
hope you bring that one back, because that was an awesome one.
I want to hear that one again.
I loved it.
If you have no idea what we're talking about, you've got to check out Coach Tomlin's press conference on Monday. Or if you don't know where to get it, go check out the 7 players mentioned article behind the steelcurtain.com. And not only can you see where he said it, you could also, there's a link at the bottom to the Steelers YouTube channel to where you could see the video. So that was a lot of fun. So we are moving along. We were looking at the biggest concerns for the Steelers now that we've seen the starters. We've seen the starters.
Basically, we went through the position groups and talked about, did we have any concerns and what they were?
After seeing the Steelers, I mean, think about it. Come on. They were 14-0 through the first quarter. They were 20-0 through the first half. Some of the starters played longer than others. Ben Roethlisberger was not the first starter to come out of the game. Was he?
He was not. No, he was not.
It was
Zach Banner.
It was Zach Banner. And they're still easing him back in, and they wanted to see what Dan Moore Jr. could do at right tackle, which is he could do pretty good. I still think he's better at left because that's what he's used to, but you can see that he's your swing tackle. We'll get to that one a little bit. I think we need to save some time. Let's build up, because first thing we're going to do, let's do this one first. Let's do the easy one. Quarterback. What do you think of the quarterback play in the first quarter of this last game?
No worries. For anybody that was wondering what Ben Roethlisberger we were going to get, I think he answered all those questions in about, 8 minutes of game time.
Yeah. 16 offensive plays. And, I mean, think about it. His shortest completion of the night was his first pass, and that was on a 1st and 15 after a false start. For 3 yards. Then you had a nice little Najee Harris run. Then you had we got it on the first drive of Ben being Ben. He goes to the right. He misses it. He goes to the left. It was crazy. Go ahead.
That was, I mean, you want to talk about a feeling of nostalgia. That was Ben circa, 2005, 2006,
Yeah.
And I mean, and he didn't look panicked with it, he almost looked like he was having fun with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now,
when he let go of that ball, the look on him was almost like, I bet going through his mind when he let go of that ball was boom, baby,
Yeah.
But the defender came in and made a fantastic play.
And that was what I was going to say. A lot of us were saying, oh, it's a drop ball, it's a drop. I still think he could have caught the ball.
Correct.
But there was a hand in there. You can't say that the defender didn't have something to do with it. But honestly, a big, strong tight end should not let one hand take it away.
Was it Jeffrey Benedict that went through and said he had slowed it down frame by frame, was looking? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was like, he said he still could have caught that ball, but it was not as easy as it looked full speed on TV.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, they didn't as you guys know, I dive into the numbers of the PFF scores. You don't have to believe the PFF scores. Eric Ebron had a great PFF score. On the Steelers offense, he was second behind Freiermuth. He was ahead of Roethlisberger in PFF scores. So people that were saying, Eric Ebron, he's so terrible. And not only that, you ready? You want me to blow your mind? He had a better run blocking score than any offensive lineman on the Steelers.
Really?
He had a better run blocking score than any offensive lineman on the Steelers from Saturday's game. People are like, what do you mean? What do you mean? You know what? Well, first of all, he had a really nice block. What was the one I was watching? I think it might have been Najee's long.
It was Najee's long catch and run. Ebron sealed the outside guy to the inside so Najee could get the corner.
I mean, it wasn't like he came in and great technique pancake blocked him. He did more of a thing where he just got his side in front of that guy where he couldn't come in and make a play. There was also another play I remember. Najee only had a couple good runs because, oh my goodness, two of them, it's like they didn't block for him at all. One of them, they specifically didn't block the outside edge rusher, and he came right in and blew up the play for like -1 or 2 yards. But there was one play that I rewound it and watched it several times because Kendrick Green got off the ball on the block, and Ebron from the tight end, had the little pull right up in the middle block, and the two of them made a fantastic block. One on one guy, one on another, and those are the ones that I know. So I understand why that. Now, honestly, you want to know the truth? When Ebron's in trouble is when they ask him to pass block. In all honesty, when they ask him to stay in and pass block and not go out on a route, you're not going to get a lot from him. So, but it was also just one game. But anyway, how did we get off that one? Because we were talking about quarterback.
Quarterback, and you went, I don't know. You get off.
I actually had an article the other day where I was saying,
here we go again.
No, this is about quarterbacks. I got frustrated because I'm like, Ben Roethlisberger comes out, does his thing, scores 14 points in the first quarter, plays 16 plays, everything else. We're all talking about all the stuff that, Freiermuth has 2 touchdowns, all the things going on. And I go on BTSC and look at the comments first thing Sunday morning, and it's all about Haskins and Rudolph. And I got really frustrated because I'm like, that's all we got to talk about.
You're all wanting to talk and argue about two guys we have never seen the field.
Huh? Yeah. I'm like, we had 2 games where all we could talk about was Haskins and Rudolph. Now we have a chance to talk about something else. And that's all we wanted to talk about. Seriously, I have no problem talking about him. Really, I don't. I mean, that was 3/4 of the game. But really, that's the first thing you want to do is go there. The first thing you should be talking about, Ben looked great. Next. Then you can talk about other stuff, And these are 2 guys that you're like, okay, which one's going to be wearing shoulder pads holding a clipboard and which one's going to be wearing sweatpants holding a clipboard? Yeah. That's what we're talking about right now, which I know 2019 was not that far away. We understand we got to be there and prepared. But really, going into this season, it is about number 7. Those are nice stories when that's all we get. But this might be the only chance you got to talk about number 7, and yet you want to talk about 2 and 3. No, I'd rather talk about 7. Let's go on. So quarterback, good.
Yep.
Running back.
Still, believe it or not, after 2 games, I'm not as concerned what's going to go on behind Najee Harris.
No. Actually, I'm starting to like Balaj.
So am I.
I am.
Yeah, I really think it's Najee, Ant Mac, and Balaj. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's funny because when it comes to Benny Snell Jr., he's got to play this week. And then he has to come out and play well this week. If he doesn't play, I think he's done. If he does play and doesn't play well, I think he's done. I think he has to play and play well. That's just me, because they've shown they have other depth. And honestly, Najee's the man. Now, you've got to have other guys, because like I say, that's the one position where guys miss games more than anywhere else. Yep. So you've got to assume that there might be 3 games you don't have number 22. So you have to be ready for that. But honestly, I don't know that it's as much about the other guys they have, is to make sure things are being taken care of up front. Because I think we saw that even with Najee on Saturday night. So running back, good. Wide receivers.
I think the fact that Chase Claypool got to sit out the other night, because there was no worry about the depth, just tells you everything you need to know about the wide receiver group.
Yeah. And a lot of people I know, they really like seeing Matthew Sexton out there as the returner. They're like, oh, well, can he knock off Ray? The biggest issue I have right now is he's only had 26 offensive snaps. He's had 1 target with 0 receptions. So he hasn't shown anything as a wide receiver, only a return guy. And if it's close between him and Ray, you're going to want the guy that you know you can at least run an end around or run a short route. You can get in the ball and he's going to catch it. So we'll see how that plays out. How do you feel now about the tight ends after Saturday night?
Feeling pretty good about tight ends too. Not too worried there. Actually, the Steelers went from, tight end being an area of potential concern to like, okay, who's not going to make the roster?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I still think Kevin Rader would be a great guy for the practice squad. I think he does a lot on special teams, and I think he's a guy they could elevate if they needed to. But I mean, I'd even be okay with them keeping 4. We didn't even talk about fullback. Jeffrey's big on loving how they're using Trey Edmonds as an H-back.
So am I.
And Trey Edmonds, would love to keep him on the team.
That position, H-back, is totally suited for his style, his build, and the way he plays the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, let's just say this. He fits better into Canada's offense than someone like Jalen Samuels, who ran the typical Canada offense when he was in college.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think if there's another running back that gets on this roster, I don't think it's Samuels. I don't even know that at this point right now, if I had to pick between Snell and Edmonds, I'm taking Edmonds.
Yeah.
Because great special teams. Some people would say, well, do you take him over Watt? I don't know that you take him over Watt, but that you just might want them. You might want them both.
Special teams is his versatility in that H-back type spot. Mm-hmm. The fact that he could run the ball, he catch the ball, he's a good blocker. He's interesting.
You're right. Let's just say, everyone said that Jalen Samuels was the Matt Canada H-back, but Trey Edmonds does it better. So, yeah, I'm really, really surprised there. Like to see it's so funny because another thing I put on Twitter when it gets back to the tight ends.
Steelers Freak, who came back with yet another good one tonight. Edmonds could cover for Watt if Watt was injured.
Exactly. He brings you. So, I mean, he played some fullback last year when Watt was injured. And that's why I'm like, I at least have Trey Edmonds on the practice squad, but he might be more, they might need him more than that. I don't know, because he's a guy that was on the practice squad last year and then was elevated and stuff like that. But going back to the tight ends where we were, because I realized we didn't discuss the fullbacks. I thought it was interesting that it seemed like there was a bigger connection between Roethlisberger and Freiermuth and a bigger connection between Ebron and Rudolph. That's not what I expected. I expected it to be the other way around. So,
okay. So I think with Roethlisberger, this is just total speculation from me from what I saw from the
Mhm.
game. All right. Roethlisberger has seen enough of Freiermuth to say, hey, this kid's got some skills. I need to work on building a rapport with this guy as a receiver. So that
Their lockers are next to each other.
right. Okay.
Things like that.
Ben already knows what he has from Ebron. Okay. I think what he found out from Freiermuth in that game was that Freiermuth has a skill set that is slightly different from Ebron's.
No, I think it's very similar to Heath Miller.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
In that line.
In terms of what routes he can run and produce at.
Yeah.
Okay. The routes that Freiermuth ran for those touchdowns the other night aren't Ebron's best routes.
No, I think you're right. And
I think Ben just found out, though, that now he's got a tight end to run those routes, which actually just makes Ben Roethlisberger more dangerous in the red zone.
Absolutely. And tomorrow, I'm assuming tomorrow, who knows, maybe Jeff will hold it to Thursday, but very soon you will be having a Steelers Vertex coming to you courtesy of myself and Jeffrey Benedict. Jeffrey breaks down the first, we were looking at Ben Roethlisberger's passes. We charted them. We figured out where he was throwing. And he looks at that first touchdown and he's like, that wasn't a pump fake. Ben went to throw the ball and stopped. You know, a pump fake is when you're trying to pretend like you're throwing. You know, I think of the movie. I don't know if you've seen it or not. Daddy's Home 2. It's the Christmas movie, and Will Ferrell's got the snowball. Go to throw it at Mark Wahlberg. He's like, over and over again. I'm like, he's not even trying to throw it. Ben Roethlisberger went to throw that ball, realized that Freiermuth was doing a little juke move and wasn't going to be ready to catch it, and pulled it back and threw it again when he was open. It was beautiful. You got to check it out. Jeffrey broke it down great. So tight ends were no good. We've got to start where we could have some concerns here. Okay. Let's get to the offensive line. This is still, I think this was the biggest concern coming into the season, and I think it's still the biggest concern now.
Yes.
Start where you want to start.
Well, let's start where it's easy.
Yeah.
Let's start at guard.
Okay.
I have no concerns about our guard play.
Okay. Are you okay with
our
Trey
guard
Turner?
depth? I'm okay with Trey Turner.
I think he's getting there. I think he's improving. And I also think that Rashad Coward has showed that he could, he played well center. And I think BJ Finney's been playing great at guard.
Correct. So when you take those three and Kevin Dotson, okay, they're going to make guard is going to work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because here's what's crazy. A name from the past, the not so distant past, last year, everyone thought could be the next guy at guard. Derwin Gray couldn't clear him through waivers, got claimed by Jacksonville. He got released today.
Yeah, I saw that. And
some people were like, "Oh, do you think he come back?" Guard isn't the place where they have any concerns right now, unless he's going to come back and play tackle. So go ahead.
So then you could say, okay, well, let's look at center.
Okay.
I don't want to list center as a concern, but Kendrick Green
is. It's a concern.
It's partly just due to his being green.
Yeah. And not just with his name.
Correct.
Sorry.
No, he has the massive quads that work in his favor.
Yeah, quadrant green.
Quadrant green. All right, so Green, we're probably going to be throwing him out there, and he's going to do a lot of learning as he goes. That means that you are going to have to stomach a few mistakes here and there.
Yes. If you're ready for me to give my thoughts on good old Quadrant Green. Okay. He had a rough time. He had a rough game Saturday with pass blocking. He had a very poor pass blocking grade. It was 31. But he made some real nice blocks on the run blocking to help salvage his grade for the most part. The thing with him is you have to remember, because he's a rookie, is that it should only get better as time goes on.
Right.
That's the biggest upside with him. If it's rough, it's not like I almost feel like I know JC Hassenauer is kind of young, but between the AAF where he was for a while and NFL before that and been around, there's only so much more you could possibly get from him. Kendrick Green's just getting started. So if they're at the same level right now, Kendrick Green has that terrible P word of potential, but he does. He has a lot more potential to go along. Now, like, for example, people want to criticize Rudolph that he threw the ball somewhat behind Freiermuth, where he could have maybe had a third touchdown. They had to settle for a field goal. Kendrick Green completely whiffed on that block, and Rudolph he didn't even have time to set his feet. Right. He was getting killed. So that you're going to get plays like that every once in a while when you don't want that to happen with your 39-year-old quarterback. So Green's run blocking, pretty good, in my opinion.
Yes.
Got to work on the protection with him. So I'm a little concerned, but I'm still hopeful. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes. Concerned. My concern is not kind of what you were saying. He's going to have some mistakes. He's still going to be learning some things. I don't want any of his mistakes to, land our 39-year-old quarterback on IR. Yeah. That's why it's a concern.
Yeah, I mean, and bottom line is, and someone said in the live chat, about he's playing a little small right now. He's going to have problems with a bull rush of a huge nose tackle. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But at the same time, if you go into passing downs, he might not have a guy lined up on him because it might, even if they're going against a 3-4 defense, there's a lot of times in sub package that he might not have someone lined up over top of him.
Right.
So I think he's going to do better when he doesn't have the huge nose tackle in front of him to pass block, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. But he's working on it. He's getting there. And I still think he's the best option, but that was one of the things. I can't remember if it was this show. I think it was one of our 5 things that we did that I said, I don't want Kendrick Green to get the job by default. I want him to go out and blow us away. I don't feel like we're getting blown away by Kendrick Green, but I still think he's the best option. So,
I don't know. He's kind of, to me, he's blowing us away more in his run blocking, but as you've said, his pass blocking leaves a lot to be desired.
Yep. Yes. So, but I think he could get there. I'm still hopeful, but to say I'm not concerned at the same time, it is what it is. All right.
Let's get to the
before we get to the end and roll and talk real quick about next week. Last one's tackle.
Yep.
Go ahead. You want to start with right?
Right tackle. No, I want to start with left.
Okay, you want to start with left? Go ahead.
Yes. I've been a bit unimpressed by Chooks at left tackle.
Yeah, he's pretty much had the worst grade of everyone on offense every game.
Which is surprising because they felt that he was probably more of a left tackle.
Yeah.
Did playing right tackle all year last year hurt him?
You would think just having experience, he should be fine, but.
Yeah, but, he played well as a right tackle last year.
Yeah.
He played consistently better than what I've seen for his consistency this year so far.
Yeah.
So that worries me. Now let's move to right tackle.
Yeah, move to right tackle. Go ahead.
Move to right tackle. And then I'm going to talk swing. Right tackle. Zach Banner needs to see a little more, of course, as he works his way back.
Played really well in the 12 snaps that he had.
He did. Played very well.
I'm just worried about his durability.
Correct. So what's that going to be? So not as big of a question mark there. Now, if Zach Banner's durability isn't there, that gets me into swing tackle.
Mm-hmm.
If you told me right now that we would have a tackle down and we would bring right now, because everybody's going to agree who the swing tackle should be, Yeah. If it's set with Banner and Chooks, the third guy in there is Dan Moore Jr.
Yes, it is.
And honestly, if Zach Banner couldn't start this season, I hate to say it, but I'd put Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle and move Chooks back over to the right side.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
They're not.
It just doesn't seem like a move they would do.
No.
Yeah.
But I think that you'd be better off that way. Because honestly, I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to think Dan Moore Jr. might be a better left tackle than Chooks. Okay, maybe it's not. Yeah.
I don't know this maybe. I love this one from Steelers Freak. He says,
yes.
The more and more plays, the more I like him
fire.
starting more.
Steelers Freak, you're on fire tonight.
Yeah. The more and more plays, the more I like starting more. Okay.
He's either really on it or been drinking heavily.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. Based on their play
right now,
Dan Moore Jr. should be starting at left tackle right now.
Yes.
He's not going to, though.
No.
Because honestly, based on their play, Kevin Dotson should have started the last game of last season as a rookie, and they still wouldn't do it. They only played him when they had to.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't have faith that they will put him out there. Maybe Coach Clem is different, and that I just don't know that it comes from Coach Clem. Maybe Coach Clem is saying, hey, this is what we got to do. Would you feel much better about the Steelers line if Zach Banner was good to go and playing right tackle, Dan Moore Jr. was good to go and playing left tackle, and Chooks was the swing?
Yeah, I probably would.
So would I. I would feel better, but I just don't feel that that's what they're going to do right now.
No,
I just don't. So, yeah, it crazy. So I'm concerned about tackle.
Chooks better get it together, or a couple games in, there's going to be a loud enough going on that you're going to end up seeing it.
Yeah. So the concern I have, I think this is where we have our biggest concern is with the offensive line, and I think it's more at tackle. Like I say, I'm still concerned with center. Someone brought it up earlier. I don't remember who, but yeah, today, Kendrick Green spoke to the media, and then Coach Tom was asked about it, and they're like, yeah, when he gave up the sack against the Eagles, he watched that, he broke down that film over and over and over, and he is doing everything he can, and he's taking it. He's not blowing off when he messes up. He's in it. He's at it. So he's just got to translate it. But when it comes to the tackles, I'm concerned about the play at left tackle, and I'm concerned about the durability at right.
Yes.
That's it. I want to see more from Banner. All right, we're running really low on time to talk about this coming week, but we really wanted to break this down because this is the question. We don't know if we're going to see any of the starters this week.
Yeah,
usually when the Steelers have a fourth preseason game, they rest everybody. But they have a whole extra week in there that they don't normally have to prepare for week one. They oftentimes would use the excuse of we wanted to get a jump on the week one stuff and not having players recovering from the preseason game, so they'd be ready to jump right in with week one stuff, which makes sense. But now you've got the extra week. I don't know how they're going to play it. Coach Tom was asked about it yesterday. He completely answered as if they asked a different question. They asked the question again, and he completely answered it as if they asked a completely different question. Wouldn't say a word about if the veterans or starters are going to play this week. Not a peep. We have no clue. What do you think?
It really wouldn't surprise me if you saw a series.
Yeah. Just to go through game prep again.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, when it came to Ben Roethlisberger, it's funny because Coach Tom said, well, he's like, normally he wouldn't be playing in a game like this, talking about the Detroit game, but because we have a new coordinator, we thought it was good to get them out on the same page. So based on that comment, it makes me feel like they're treating this coming week as the third preseason game, like you normally would, where you would see people. But I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah,
we don't know what to expect. So I'd love to. I really want to see the starting offensive line for a while. I do, regardless.
I think there you may
do.
You may not see.
Yeah.
You may not see Ben.
Yeah.
There could be a few guys you may not see. You may not see Ben. You may not see Cam.
Ben, Cam, Hayden, Fitzpatrick, and depending on the ankle, Claypool. Or honestly, leave out Juju. You played him for over 40 snaps this past week. Holy crap, how long was he in there? You know what I mean? So those are some players. I agree. I think that's pretty close. So we've got to look at who's actually playing. I'm hoping, if nothing else, I want to see that starting offensive line, because that's the biggest concern it seems that we have, and that's the questions you need to answer. And I'd really like to see what they're going to do with slot corner.
That offensive line needs more game snaps together, if nothing else.
You are correct. I'd like to see Zach Banner play twice as many snaps. Show that he's ready, he's closer to going. Yep. So Rich, we don't have a lot of time. I didn't get to check last week to see if anybody got it right. I didn't. It was an awkward score.
I don't think anybody had Detroit up to 20. I don't think anybody had Detroit up to 20. So I doubt anybody nailed it.
I mean, this is crazy because I don't know what to expect. We don't know if the starters are playing, so it's really hard to pick a score. A part of me doesn't want to see the Steelers go undefeated in the preseason, if you know what I mean, because that doesn't always translate well, but who really cares about that? So, Rich, give me your score for Friday night.
Steelers 15-12 in a field goal fest.
15-12 in the field goal fest. You think Rudolph plays the whole game and all they do is settle for field goals?
There you go.
I love it. Okay. I'm going Steelers. I'm going 24-13. That's a nice, easy score.
Okay.
Boom. It is in the live chat. I am ready for you all to give your scores for this week. We'll run through as fast as we can, finish up here. Rich, I don't know about you while I'm waiting for the scores to start piling in.
Yeah,
the new audio show. I listened to the new audio show from this past, I think it was Friday, of what Yin's talking about. They had their debut podcast for us on our audio platform on Friday. Oh, dude, I loved it. I thought it was great. They even have their own sound effects with stuff. It's good stuff. If you haven't checked that out, that's a new one. It's a good one. It really is. It's a good one. So make sure you're checking out all our podcasts, all the audio, all the live shows. You're missing out. We've got so much content. If you want to hear Steelers, you've got plenty of time to do it. Here we go. Greg Schallenberger says Steelers 20-10. Shot Manahan, Steelers 20, Panthers 16. Steelers Pittsburgh says 17-9. Mark Tobin says 21-10 Steelers. Like we say, well, if we just give a number, it's Steelers unless we say otherwise. Okay. Tyler W, 20-6. Okay. He said not 20. I said it wrong. 12-6. 12-6. Battle with a blunt tool. All right. Brian Brown says 24-10 Steelers. Brian Blackstock says 27-20 Steelers.
Oh, he's put up Steelers freak because he's continuing to be on fire. The very next one.
Mason's old lady knows he can't score in the red zone.
Sorry. Just he's really bringing it tonight.
Bully Mob Kennel says Steelers 29-16. Got to go with the awkward 29. Got to love it. Okay. Stacy Lynn says 24-14 Steelers. Cree says 20-13 Steelers. Jerry Terry, love it. 17-17 tie. No overtime in preseason. Got to love that. So 7. I would, what I think if it'd be a tie, I think 16-16 would be better, where the Steelers have to go for like a 2-point conversion to tie it after giving up because everything else is field goals, and they actually do it. That'd be interesting. Okay. Kathy Forrid says 21-17 Steelers. Awesome Stuff 1983 says 8-0 Steelers, all safeties. Gotta awesome. Love it.
Awesome stuff. That's awesome.
Okay. George Tesson says 17. Bert Tavares, I almost said it wrong. He says 24-10 Panthers. We had first time someone has said not the Steelers since the Hall of Fame game. Okay. Richard Adamson says, did I say Adamson? I said that right. Yep. He says 21-10 Steelers. Oop. hold on. I did the wrong one. There it is. Reginald Rivers says 24-16 Steelers. So he thinks an extra field goal other than what I said. Okay. What does Mark Davidson say? Is that something to bring up? Okay. He says Steel City Steelers win 7-0 from a line drive punt, Harvin kick, tackle, and fumble recovery for the score. It would have to be in the end zone because guess what? You can't advance a muffed punt. But it would have to hit off the guy and go into the touchdown zone for the Steelers to fall on it. That'd be pretty nifty. Okay. Kyle Smith says 33-10 Steelers. Gabe Bradshaw says 20-10 Steelers. So Richard McKinney says 21-7 Steelers. What's that? Faustino Flores. It says 1916 Carolina. Okay. I'll be honest with you. The Steelers' preseason opponents do not strike fear in the hearts of many like their regular season opponents do, if you know what I mean.
Yep. We got
Jennifer says 21-3. Any more? Or is that the last one?
Nope. Steelers Freak gets one in here.
Okay. He says if they pound the rock, I don't care what the score is. That written
20-14.
20-14 Steelers. Okay.
Yep.
So great scores, great time. Always love doing that. You know, nobody that the Steelers face in the preseason is as good as the team they're going to face in week 1. End of story. They have one of their biggest tests in week 1. So this isn't, like I said, with so many other preseason games, this isn't about the other team as much as it's all about the Steelers. Okay. Coach Tomlin likes that he says he's hoping it's a hostile environment because he knows they're going to have one in week 1. So he kind of joked about that. It's like, you know, I'm hoping they come through for us and are hostile so we can get used to that. So this is the tune-up. This is the tune-up. We'll see how everything plays out. Maybe by Thursday night's preview show, we'll know a little bit more about who's going to play. Maybe we won't. It's hard to say. But with that said, we are now only one preseason game away from football that counts. Rich, anything you want to do to sum up tonight, or anything closing thoughts you have for us?
Yeah. So really, you know, hey, look, one more week. After this week, preseason football's done. Although there's a long time between there, there's 2 weeks in there. You're going from preseason football to regular season football. And you know what I have to say about that?
What's that?
Can't wait.